How's it going, everybody? My name is Tim with Right Rudder Marketing. This is the Right Rudder Marketing Podcast. We're very excited to have you here today on the Right Rudder Marketing Podcast. Today we have a special guest. Today is Brett Hart. Had met him a few times over the past couple of years at different trade shows. I think we saw each other at Oshkosh. He is the co-founder and is CEO. I don't know if the right title's here. Of Four Forces. So Four Forces is a pretty cool new platform out there. I'll let him kind of give a brief intro. How about you take the floor and kind of give a small introduction about yourself and the company and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Tim. I really do appreciate it. We've run in the same circles to see each other at the events year in and year out. But so I basically had about a decade's worth of experience working at various 141 schools and used a lot of different solutions at those schools during that time, and kind of felt frustration with just about every single one of them for various reasons. And basically, when I was voicing my frustration about getting some information out of a cohort of students we had brought in, the assistant chief was walking by and he's like, "Oh, you should see it up from my end." And then we just started chatting, and then he mentioned that his brother's a developer, and that's kind of where it started from. Just got a mutual frustration with what we were using currently. And then, it kind of started as a nights and weekends project. And then basically in 2022, it hit a point where it was something that schools could use. And we took on our first customers at that point, and we've been growing since then. But one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Four Forces is the collaborative nature of the software. So we're not just going to hand features to you and be like, take it or leave it. This is how it works. It's quite the opposite. The best features in the software we have built, by and large, are coming from customer frustrations, right? Not anything necessarily wrong with the software they're using right now, but it's just something that's just not being addressed. Like and truing up lease backs at the end of the month. It's a nightmare for just about every single finance department. So we built something to fix that specifically. So it's really about like addressing the needs of our customers and stuff. So we've been laser focused with that, so we do weekly sprints with the dev team, working about 4 or 5 features or user improvements throughout the week, test them over the weekend, ship them live Sunday night. And then we send out videos to all of our customers, the prospective customers, say, here's a new feature, here's how it works, and obviously thank the schools that have suggested it, because it's making their life easier, which is the ultimate, the end game, but it also makes the software a little better, a little smarter, and solving more headaches for more schools.
Cool. I noticed you mentioned a few times during that introduction, there's a lot of, frustration. A lot of challenge. I don't like to use the word frustration. I like to say challenges.
Challenges is good. Yeah.
Challenges is way more positive, right? So the words make the actions, our words makes our thoughts, and our thoughts makes the actions, and the actions bring results. Can you go walk us through some of the challenges that some flight schools are experiencing today with the current solutions that are out there? And also with those challenges, how do you guys address them?
So a lot of it was the interconnectivity of the different departments, right? So, the maintenance department is oftentimes siloed and maybe even using a completely different software than the scheduling is. And then scheduling sometimes using something different than the student tracking. And none of that is speaking to each other. And to further complicate it, some schools have, payment processors that are third parties. So now you have all these different solutions, none of which are necessarily talking to each other. So it's not uncommon for a parent gives a credit card for $10,000. They swipe it to put it on the student's account. They swiped it on the card holder here, the processor here, but if the phone rang and they forgot to add it here. That student goes to fly, it shows they have a zero balance, and then they go look at their credit card. So just these multitude of like little, human errors that are totally, it happens, but that's why we focused on having a natural payment integration with our software. So when a student swipes a credit card, it goes right into Four Forces, but the money is added via Four Forces and our partnership with Gravity Payments. So it's trying to simplify things across the board. Our ultimate goal to start was from the operation side and the student and CFI experience to really make the best experience there, to make the flight ops, side of the house happy. But what we learned is that's just one party that you have to sell at the flight school, because the flight ops have to be on board, the maintenance team have to be on board, and the finance team have to be on board. So we spent a great part of the last like 12 to 18 months focusing on maintenance and finance. So when I do demos now, I specifically ask them, like, bring your biggest skeptic, the person who doesn't want to make the move because they like the way it is now. Because we've built little wins in the software throughout for each one of those departments to give them their time back. Because right now it's just inefficient in certain functions that they do.
You mentioned a few things in there like maintenance and then finance. I think those are two kind of overlooked ones with scheduling that are very kind of very important, right? And you also mentioned the partnership with Gravity Payments. So just, we also use Gravity Payments. We were using Stripe before and other like well-known, like I work with US Bank and they had their own payment processing system. And the fees are quite ridiculous. They kind of add up over time. Can you walk us through like a little bit about how this partnership with Gravity Payments works and also kind of the fees they expect for like say American Express is one of the hardest ones to process, to be honest with you.
Oh, it's always a little bit more. Yeah.
It's a little bit more, right? What are some of the fees they can expect, and what are some of how does that? I guess if I was a flight school and I wanted to switch my payment processing, how does that work out?
So basically, what we would do when we onboard them with Four Forces, one of the things we get is the last 3 months of transactions of their credit cards currently, what they're paying now. So they basically want to know what type of credit card they're using, the volume of the transactions, how much each transaction is, and basically and how much of the cards the transactions are with the card physically there, and how many of them are stored in the software. Because all of that that's all the secret sauce behind what gives them their effective rate. Since we've started Four Forces, the average flight school, when they come to us, when they present us with their numbers as far as effective rate, it's like 3.45 every time they swipe a credit card. It's pretty high. What's often happens is the owner is under the assumption that they're paying much less than that. But when they were sold that initially, there's all these little fees that get up there. And by the time when they finally run the number, it's like 3.5. I mean, we've had schools, people, some even over 4% at sometimes, because
4%. Oh my God.
it's wild. So what's great about that is we chose Gravity very specifically. We wanted two major things: effective rates for work that work for our customers, because the flight school I used to work at, we were over 3.5. So that's just going right. Yeah, that's going to Visa, MasterCard, Discover. They don't own the planes, but they're getting paid like they do, and that's what we're trying to solve with Gravity, because we could get them. It depends on the school, right? But the average school goes for about 3.4 to about 2.9. So that's and maybe in some instances high, a little lower depending on your transaction rate. But that's 0.5%. That's an enormous amount of money when you factor in a multi-engine, a 3-hour cross-country multi-engine flight. Like, that adds up, and it adds up quickly. And so that's a savings that our customers get day one, because it's okay. Now that we're using credit cards, it's cheaper. And in most instances, to be quite honest with you, the savings that our schools have received by switching their credit card processor is more expensive than our annual cost to them. So they're coming out in the black, and getting a new software,
Yeah, I was using, I think, Stripe, and I was paying around 3.5, 3.4 with Stripe. And I know this is not about Gravity Payments or anything like that, but I think flight school is the margin. If you were on our previous podcast, we were talking about profitability, and every expense adds up, right? So we have to be very cognizant of where we put our money, what software packages, what subscriptions we're using, what marketing people you use.
Yeah.
And for Gravity Payments, it saved us thousands of, if not actually tens of thousands of dollars a year. Think about this: you're processing over hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not millions of dollars a year, in credit cards, and that 0.5% or that 0.05, whatever it is, it's going to add up really quick. It's one of the good selling points that you guys have there is partnering with Gravity and getting that lower effective rate.
Yeah, they've been great. They're if you pick up the phone and call them, they're U.S. based, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you'll get someone on the phone if there's ever any issue. So, and the turnaround time about batching money out is fantastic compared to some of the other ones out there.
Cool. let's take a step back really quick. So we kind of got into some challenges and features.
Yep.
Let's look at kind of the company as a whole. So it's a relatively, is it how I guess established are you? How new or how?
We started building in 2019, and so like I said, the first couple of years were just nights and weekends, and then in 2022 we made the jump to go full time with it. And so since then, it's just been iterating and continue to grow the software. I mean, if I'm being quite honest, the software that we rolled out with in 2022, like I'm embarrassed to see screenshots of it now, but I guess that's growth because you have to start somewhere. And, it's that comes with flight schools that took a chance on us, that saw that we were trying to build this the right way. And the feedback we got from them was just incredible. It was, there's only so much you can do and build and test. Getting real live users in there who are doing it multiple times, and trying to solve problems, that's when you really fortify the software. And like in between then, we were also we're kind of obsessed with trying to solve pain points. So over several year period, I went on to all these subreddits in Reddit and like aviation, flying, CFI lounge. And I was like, I'll give you a $75 Amazon gift card if you could just talk to me a little bit about your flight school and what you like about what's working there and what you don't like. And that was basically another product roadmap for us, right? From users from all over the country who were using all different softwares, and you kind of see some common themes there. And that really helped us kind of fortify our roadmap, because it's all about having what's coming next, right? Because there's always something that there's going to be a change, there's going to be a regulation change that we need to be nimble for and be prepared for. And there's always going to be a feature request that we're like, no, that's brilliant. That makes a lot of sense. So, yeah.
Cool. Let's get into some of those features then. So there's you mentioned a lot of challenges and features that a lot of challenges that were out there and a lot of features that you did to kind of tackle those challenges. You first started off, we kind of touched on the finance one already. The second one you mentioned was maintenance, right? So how does the maintenance kind of portal or software work in Four Forces?
So everything's talking together, right? So if me and you were going out as a flight and we finished a reservation, I put the hobs and tack in, that tack is automatically reducing, for the 100-hour for the next one. So in real time, everything is talking. And when a student goes to make a reservation, they have a button to click on that says airworthiness that tells them how many hours are left on the 100-hour, 50-hour, days left on the annual, just to prevent them booking an aircraft that isn't going to be ready for them. So it's all about it's maintenance and tracking all those features, but utilizing it in a way that is insightful and makes good habits and stuff, because you don't want to book a flight for 8 p.m. today if it has 3 hours left on the 100-hour. You know what I mean? It's just not a good plan. So it's getting the scheduler and maintenance to talk to each other. We have an inventory component as well. So flight schools have massive inventories. What our system does is keep track of it in there, what supplier they're getting it from typically, if it has an alternate, if it has an alternate part number because they buy it from Aircraft Spruce. So there are all these details in there. And then when that inventory is put into a work order and that work order is approved, that inventory is then reduced from there. And if it hits a threshold that they're concerned about, it reminds them to order the part again. So it's really trying to make everything kind of happen in symmetry and at the same time and making it as automated as possible, because folks in the maintenance department, they have better things to do than fill out write the 100-hour inspection, that report out time and time again. You do it once, you automate it, it populates it for them every time they do 100 hours. So it's giving them little wins that gets them back to doing what they want to do and not messing with software. Because it's like I said, honestly, the finance and the maintenance departments are the biggest, because they have their systems, it works for them, and they don't want it to be disturbed. So we have to go in there and explain, here's the benefit of all of this. I know there's going to be a little bit of a onboarding process that we try to do 95% of the work, but it's going to be a change, and so, I tell a story that we have a larger school that came on with us earlier this year. But their maintenance department at the time, and they were just about 30 aircraft, so this is a big operation. Their maintenance department was all on a chalkboard. So all the tack, the hobs, the 50 hours, the 100 hours, the 80s when they were due, all on a chalkboard. And so naturally, getting them on board was a little bit of really took a lot of convincing. and training to make sure they felt comfortable. But it's momentous to us because we got a call from the owner probably about 2 months later, and she's like, I've got some news for you. And I was like, what's that? And she's like, well, they said we can get rid of the chalkboard. And like that became like a rallying cry for us, to be quite honest with you, because it's like, all right, like if we can show the impact for folks that are that apprehensive, then we hope that's something we can replicate, throughout the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I worked in manufacturing before I got the whole aviation marketing stuff, and what you're talking about there it's called continuous improvement. It's called lean. I don't know if people are out there are well versed, but lean manufacturing. It's just on time manufacturing is one of the things, one of those like hot words we throw out. And what you described really there is called a Kanban system. So what happens is you have inventory control. You have X amount of products, whatever item number you have here, and then at a certain point when the inventory is depleted, you get a notification or it automatically orders something. That way you're able to keep the stock right. I think I'm not too well versed in like the aviation maintenance, realm and stuff like that. But applying those same principles, and I see this a lot in the industry. A lot of stuff that is done in like other industries, like manufacturing or even whatever it is. What happens is a lot of the technologies that are out there, they're just not being applied to the flight school market. We kind of got the last leg here. So seeing someone being really innovative and bringing those technologies to the market is it's an exciting time. So.
Yeah. That's the thing. We're trying to build something. It's custom for flight schools, and because the issues and the headaches associated with it are uniquely to flight schools. Sometimes, you know what I mean. It's wild, and so we try to give as much continuity to everything that's going on in the system, because as you and I both know, people are at a flight schools for a short period of time, and if they're a dispatcher and they're also a CFI at the same time. They get the call for the airlines. All that knowledge goes out the door, right? And that's part of the process. We understand it, but it's also like that person also knew exactly what was going on with the schedule, and that other person just had a check ride canceled last week, and that goes out the door. So what we try to provide is that continuity of like someone else can hop in and see, oh, this is exactly what's going on, So that's one of the challenges we try to break as well, because like anyone who's worked at a flight school knows how valuable like the scheduler is. And how devastating it could be when they leave, because they just have so much like knowledge about the comings and goings that when they move on to their next endeavor, it goes out the door, and it's a really difficult thing to kind of reassess. And there's only so many Post-it notes that are available to kind of piecemeal things together.
Got it. So yeah, some of the challenges we talked about was finance, maintenance. I guess we'll go to the big behemoth one here. Let's talk about the scheduling, the main part of there. So scheduling, walk me through like if I'm a flight school and I'm thinking about 4 Forces, what can I expect with choosing a scheduler like 4 Forces, and what's some of the features that are there, and what are some of the challenges that I might be seeing as a flight school that you address?
So a lot of it has to do with simplifying the process for CFIs as they're like ending a flight, grading a flight, and then going on to their next, right? Because during the summer, a lot of times your CFIs have back-to-back flights. So ending a flight, registering an invoice, doing grading a whole separate module, like it can be very clunky and time consuming. And sometimes CFIs are like, I'll do it at the end of the day, which can be a disaster because they could forget exactly what happened on the lesson. They're not closing out the invoice, so that money, you have AR starting to build. And then you have the problem if they don't put the tack and hobs in, the next aircraft that went out doesn't have the right tack and hobs out because it's not accurate, so then the logs get immediately jammed up. So it's little things like that. So we have mechanisms in there to make the process as simple for CFIs as possible and easy, and so that they can basically a CFI when they are finishing the lesson, they put it auto populates everything prior to, they put the tack in, the tack in, hobs in, it auto populates the billable time. They can add ground instruction, 0.3. When they hit done there, the invoice is created, and as far as they're concerned, it's over. They can, depending on the school's policy, and then they have the option to grade it. But the most important, and they can save the grading for later, and we have a report that reminds them they have lessons that need to be graded. But the most
What do you
important
mean
is
by grading? So that's a new concept I've heard of.
so grading,
What's
like grading the lesson, right? So it's like,
okay.
for the 141 schools that have very distinct line items that they want to make sure are hit. Shondel's on this lesson. Did it hit the standard? And then so we have a sophisticated grading system that we're probably on the third iteration of off of feedback of customers, because they're like, it needs to be easier. So we've made it just like boom, 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 very easy for them to grade. That's not required at all schools, but the ones that do have that. And so that information, when they plug all that in, that's immediately reflected on the student's profile page. And so what we're trying to do, and I can show folks on a demo, is give students as much information as possible at where they are. So immediately when that lesson's graded, the student goes to their profile page, they saw exactly what they did, what they didn't do, what percentage of the lesson they have complete. We even have stuff tracking their progress for the entire course and stage, because the software has the ability to say, okay, this student should be done with the private pilot in 120 days and 65 flight hours. And that's the goal. And we can, in the system, when the student logs in, every single time they're taken to the student progress page, they'll see that exact tab. And so that they know exactly where they are with us, like and all their upcoming lessons, they can click on a button and see exactly what they'll be working on and the expected grade that's considered passing.
You mentioned the demo, so I don't know if I don't know if I prepared you for this one, but did you want to do a quick maybe 5-10 minute demo and kind of share your screen, or is that?
Yeah. No, I always have. I'm always ready with the demo. Actually, you know what? One of the things that's a good opportunity, because one of the things that we've recently put together and rolled out that we're incredibly excited about. Just give me 1 second to pull it up. Is kind of aggregating all of the important things that are happening at a school in one spot. So, we had one of our customers that we're bringing on later this month, and he called me up and had a great request. He's like, he had an upset parent come into his office and was telling him that like the school's messing up, the student's off timeline, and really just giving him the business. And he was, obviously, he's like, in his current solution, he was kind of going from tab to tab, trying to figure out what exactly was going on with the student, and it took a while, and it was clunky, and so he basically what he said to me is like, Brett, I want to be able to see every single thing that's happened with that student from the day they got here until when that parent's in my seat, like every single thing. And so, okay, we started to build that. Like on every student profile, they'll be able to see every single thing that's happened, every successful lesson, unsuccessful lesson, and we passed off to our developers, and then they called me back. They're like, why don't we do that for the whole school? And so I'll just show you kind of some small things that like some small activities that we would do in the software typically. And then I can kind of show you how it reflects in our new feature here. So how do I share my scope? That's easy enough.
It's kind of like Google. I think it's like a Google Meet type. I think they use the same API or something like that. That's fine.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. It's just like Google Meet. So I am
Shout
familiar.
out to Riverside, by the way. That's our new streaming platform here. So, cool. Let's take a look at what you got here.
So I'm going to go here. I'm on just a users tab. I'm just going to do some kind of more innocuous things here, but I'm going to change Thomas's CFI to William. And I'm also going to enroll William here into the instrument rating course. Two completely different activities, not really what you would think that would have anything that'd be reporting together. But then I'm going to pop over to the schedule and delete a flight.
Okay, there you go.
There we go. And so I'm just going to pop over here and just delete this flight. Wind conditions, cancel flight. So all kind of different things throughout the software. But we talked about kind of pooling it all together in a place that owners and chief pilots and assistant chief pilots can see exactly what's going on in the school. So they can then go here. And there are those three items that we just did. So it's basically, for lack of a better term, a Twitter feed for your flight school. So it's everything that's happening in real time off of things that are important to you, right? So if a CFI is writing a note on a student's profile page, like that, an internal note, you get notified about it. So changing, of course, is unenrolled, successful stage checks, unsuccessful stage checks. We are in the process of adding an SMS component into this, so the SMS components will come in naturally as well, so they can see the safety reports. So that'll be in there. So we're really trying to make a one-stop universe for what we envision, to be quite honest, if a flight school owner is traveling for the week, when they're in the airport kind of waiting to see what, their flight, they could pull this up and see, I know exactly what's going on in my flight school. So we're tracking everything that's happening and displaying it for you in a very easy format, but we also, we're tracking non-activity, right? And so the school has the ability to set, at what point are you nervous that a student isn't flying with you? Is that 2 days, 3 days, 4 days? You set that parameter. And if that student hasn't done a ground lesson or a flight lesson in that period of time you determine, they're going to pop up here. And the ultimate goal of that is not every student is a squeaky wheel, right? Some will just, they have a bumpy path of their training. They don't get scheduled for a little bit and then they disappear into the ether, right? And then someone's like 2 months later, like, where'd that student go? Like, this is trying to prevent those instances. So one of the things that we were really proud to get this all integrated here, because it's a lot of different components. Like I said, we're going to integrate the SMS component to it as well. But it's, what do you do with this information, right? Because this is ultimately for your leaders of the flight school. And so a good example for that is, from this, we built the action item system. So I can go to here, and I'm going to sign up for the sake of this to myself. And I'm going to ask, why are there so many gaps in this training? And I can assign it. I want to do by, tomorrow, and I submit it. Now, as a user who's been assigned that, I go over to my profile page, action items, and there it is, right? And so it's a task assignment system that is utilized everywhere in the software, but this is the primary focus is from what we call, the feature I just showed you is what we call the pulse. It's basically all the things that are going on in your flight school, both good and bad, and you can do action items off of them. So if it's a positive check ride, you can give an action item to someone, like, hey, get a photo of her and then put it on social, stuff like that, So it's good and bad stuff to make sure that it's really ultimately to enhance the student experience. And so what we've added in the system, because it works in the aircraft, is the positive exchange of controls. And so in the software here, when you assign an action item to someone, they get it to the profile and then they can say, okay, my controls. So now it's a positive exchange of controls for the customer experience. You know what I mean? So it's because it's easy for for these things to fall through the cracks. So it's, okay, you got it. You're going to follow up with the student. That responsibility is now resumed. And so then you have the ability to reach out to the student and respond to me and said, mom was ill, we'll be back on Friday. That message lives there for eternity, so you can have that kind of a back and forth until it's deemed to be closed out, and then when it's good to go, it's complete. And so we're taking the action items system even further by allowing schools to designate at what point do you want to be notified that an employee has a certain number of action items assigned to them to prevent task saturation. So, let's say it's 8. So if someone has 8 things assigned to them, it'd be good to know, okay, maybe we need to reassign some things, but it's really just trying to prevent people from getting overworked and students from slipping through the cracks and all those little things, because, those students add up, you know what I mean? And like I said, not every parent or student's going to storm into the chief's office and demand answers. Some are just going to kind of slink away. And so we're trying to actively prevent that with the folks to notify when they aren't flying. So there's much more to the software. We do the scheduling and student tracking of, all of that stuff. So this is that student progress page I mentioned to you. But This is the page that every student sees when they log in.
Pretty cool. Is that Boeing 737-10 or oh, it's an 8? Or I can't read it. Sorry.
Which one? I'm sorry.
The
87 times. This is for.
I thought I said B7. Oh, it's
no.
Boeing. Okay.
We're tracking that when the student grades a lesson. At the end of it, the CFI can put in the 87 times that are required for the check ride, and so that's aggregating that here. And so it's just another tool of record keeping for the student. That was one of my co-founders was a former student, then a CFI, then an assistant chief, and that was one of the first, I remember one of his first requests is like, I want something that tracks 8710 time from day one. Because it's something that right prior to check ride, they have to make sure they hit all these marks. So this is just kind of making sure that they don't get the check ride and they're missing something. Yeah.
8710, you're talking about I was so lost for a bit, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And then you're talking about the FAA form.
Yes, correct. Okay. Yeah.
One of the things I really liked was if they don't fly with you for a couple of days, you get a notification. I think that's pretty sick. I think other software solutions out there, I don't want to put the name out there, you have to run a special report to get that data. So I was working with a flight school the other day, and then they were talking about how do we, the exact challenge you're talking about. How do we stop students from slipping through the cracks? Like, what if, Marianne Sally hasn't flown in 2 weeks? We need to get them on the phone and check up on them, right? And that's something that I really liked there with your Twitter feed that you had built in is that, hey, it's already shown, hey, this person hasn't flown in X amount of days. We need to follow up with them and check it. And even for not even for scheduling stuff, I think we have the same thing with with leads and prospects. From the marketing sales side of the thing. If we have someone that sends a form or an inquiry to a flight school, the flight school needs to really take the initiative and call them, text them, message them, and then after 2-3 days if they don't respond, then follow up. We don't want to use the word follow up on the call though. We don't say, hey, I'm following up on this. You don't want to say that. You want to say, I haven't seen you in a few days. Everyone hates the F word. Don't say follow up. Or my favorite word is, hey, I'm circling back.
Circling back. That's the worst. Yeah. Sometimes
other parts of the. Oh, sorry.
So I was going to say sometimes I hate when we use Gmail and it'll start I am just, and it'll say it'll auto-populate circling back. You're like, no, do not do that. It's really what we like I mentioned earlier is we build the software because there's schedulers, right? There's only so many to kind of redo it, but what we want to do is have the best student CFI experience and have a system that everyone is singing from the same sheet of music. Right, because I talked to a school yesterday that this is going to solve basically resolve 4 different solutions they're using right now, all into one. And that makes life so much easier as far as just making sure everything's talking to each other. Because I've talked to schools that they have a separate maintenance system, which they're fine with, and they have their scheduler. Those systems are not talking. And the thing about it is, and he was, and I'll never forget, he was like, this system's fine, it's cheap, I like it, the guys are okay with it. But the thing that we're not accounting for is if, let's say that 100-hour was done in the maintenance software, good to go, wrapped up, it's good to go. But it's not done here. And that maintenance folks leaves for the weekend, that aircraft's going to be grounded all weekend because in the scheduler it says grounded. And so all the opportunity costs for potential incidences like that can be really painful, right? And it's not something the maintenance person is going to come back and be like, oh, by the way, I forgot to move it in the system, right? So it's there's these little pain points that flight schools can bleed money that we're trying to address as best we possibly can. Because it's, this is, software and inputting invoices and stuff is not what people necessarily train for, right? They train to overhaul an engine, and so it's about and I am absolutely clueless when it comes to that stuff. So, but what we have tried to do is, find their pain points and stuff that's drives them nuts and build something that makes their life a little bit easier. We have a feature I could show you. One of the features that we have that was built, I'll never forget. I was sitting in a hangar at one of our flight schools trying to learn more from the IA there. And I'll never forget it. I'm sitting there talking to him. And a CFI and a student come in and they're like, hey, what's going on with this aircraft? When's it going to be ready? And he's like, well, we opened it up for the 100-hour. It turns out there's a lot more we need to do. It's going to be 2-3 more days, right? And so they walk off. And this guy is visibly annoyed by this whole interaction. And I asked him how many times a day is that happening? And he's like, today for this aircraft, that's the 6th time. And so it's little things like that. So I was like, okay. Noted. We should make it easy to, when the aircraft's down, you can click on it and see exactly why it's down, right? And so this gives input of this is down for the oil leak from 227, or that's if you have a
really long oil leak.
Yeah, I know. This is a good example. It's just telling you this is grounded. It's associated to this work order, but it's preventing you from having to go back to the hangar, they could just kind of clearly see, okay, and that's all tied to the work order systems. When you create a work order, that's what's feeding that. So when you say, I'm starting 100 hour, it's going to be done by Friday, that's what's going to populate here. So that's like the maintenance and the scheduling, like talking to each other in real time without them actively like having to do that, you know? And when we close out a work order in the system, it automatically makes the aircraft airworthy, you know, if the IA puts it in. So it's not a two-part process. They've approved it, they put it in their bin, work order's closed out. That money that that's the cost is associated with it, that's on the aircraft's profile page, and then the aircraft's ready to fly.
Cool. One of the things that I've seen, so I know that I'm not trying to talk about the competition here, but there's a lot of other
you're fine.
Software packages for, I like to call it like ERP, like Intersource Resource Planning, but you know, a lot of other scheduling softwares or operational softwares for flight schools. They have some type of maintenance features and payment features and all this stuff, and they module it. They call it, you know, you have to get a bundle or something like that, right? Walk us through kind of, you know, I guess the offer. Let's kind of get into the call to actions and the offers and how this works. So if someone's interested in, you know, working with Four Forces, are there additional bundles you got to purchase to get these features? Is it just, do you have a bare bones kit with just scheduling, or what's your I guess offer and your model, and how does this whole thing work?
Yeah, so we intentionally set out to not do the module thing because we've got feedback that some folks don't like that, because then it almost encourages you not to use the whole system, and then if you're not using the maintenance component, like it's so deflating, right? And so the way we do it is I'm in as a chief right now, so I'm able to see everything. But we have things broken down by user types. And basically what Four Forces does is we charge you by the user types that you have, not including students. So we don't care how many students you have. We don't care how many planes you have. We care. No, yeah, no, I know. I'm sorry. I mean that. I mean that in a good way. You're absolutely right.
Perspective, we care how we don't care. So infinite amount of customers, but
yes,
it's the amount of users in the flight school is the model.
Yeah, exactly. So like a CFI, the CFI rate is $19 per month. The maintenance is $29 per month, and then the chief is $39. And each of those have different kind of permissions and stuff. You could level up your instructors in there. So if you have an instructor who's been there 20 years, you can give them permissions to essentially run the flight school. But if you also have someone who's 250 hours, just got their CFI ticket, you can give them a much more minimal permissions. So everything in the software is as customizable as we could possibly make it. And so you're not going to feel like you're using another school's grading scale, because you could use your own. You know, if you have 16 different reservation types, you can do that. So we've given you kind of carte blanche to build internally in the software how you want to utilize it. So it's not like a Part 61 school is going to feel like, man, this feels like it's built for 141 school. It's like there's a button that we have that's basically, is it 141 or Part 61? If it's Part 61, you turn it off. There's no 4-digit pins. You know, it's we try to make it feel like it's built for them. You know,
sounds really good. So it's per user, I guess admin user is the kind of the cost model there.
Yeah.
So this would apply. So I think some of the solutions out there, other schedulers or maintenance softwares out there, they kind of do it per plane. I think it is, as what I'm seeing. You guys do it per user. I think this could also be good for not just flight schools, but also maybe flight clubs, right? Is that
absolutely? We just got into the flight club market not too long ago, and so we had to build some kind of unique features for them. We built recurring billing for flight clubs because they had that that monthly fee and stuff. So that was a must-have for flight clubs. We couldn't approach them seriously until we built a native recurring billing. So we did that, and so but back to your point about the planes. Like we intentionally don't want to like penalize you for scaling. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to look into the system and be like, ooh, they just added 2 planes. Here comes the bill for the next 12 months. Like that's just not how we look at it. We truly believe in scaling together. We one of the things that, if you're going to ask me, like the one thing that we pride ourselves on the most is customer service and kind of the building of that partnership. Because of how we do those sprints I mentioned earlier. So just about every week I'm emailing our customers with updates. And it's great when those updates include things that they have suggested. And we speak about it and stuff. And it's not uncommon for me, a team at the school, and our dev team to get on a call together, show how we've mapped it out, is this the end state that we're looking for? And then we finish it. And so it's like, the most rewarding thing I do, to be quite honest with you, is when folks bring us a critique or a request and we build on it and make this software better, and then getting to see them like utilize it and go back like 2 weeks later and like look and like, oh, they're awesome. They're using the lease back feature. Like, to see it in action is so cool, because it wasn't there prior. And then it's great because you have the satisfaction because it's building that trust with customers, because then they're like, well, they're not kidding. When they say they're going to build something, they actually do it. It's not just like a ploy to get them to sign a contract. It's a, we start a relationship with our customers. We want it to be the last migration that they do, right? Like, we know it's a big pain, and so we hope we would do everything we can to make it the last. So because of that, the software is never going to be done. It's never ever going to be done. We're going to keep building, keep growing, keep finding efficiencies that we didn't know weren't there, but that's the fun part, is kind of, and then when you have that cool new feature, like the next time I go to a flight school of similar, characteristics, I kind of know what they're dealing with more than I did last week, right? I know that, we talk about certain of the competitors, some of them have daily billing with their payment processing. So each transaction takes a little bit out every day, which makes rectifying at the end of the month a nightmare. And so we don't have, like, it's little things like that. Like, when we told one of our new customers coming on board that we don't do bill like that, we bill at the end of the month. That's how Gravity bills. It literally did a fist bump. Like, yes, because like it's such a time consuming process to rectify those transactions, because they're off by 20 cents or $2, and matching it because that fee has been taken out right away is quite frustrating.
Yep. Cool. For onboarding, so I don't know if you have anything else to show us on your screen here.
No, I could, yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind. You should keep showing if you have something. Let's talk about, so we kind of had the offer a little bit. Let's talk about, if I'm interested in joining Four Forces, what's the steps? How do we get in contact with you? What do we expect in the first month, maybe? Walk us through the process of bringing on a new flight school to Four Forces.
Absolutely. Well, if you want to reach out to me, like to see a more personalized demo, my email is brett@fly4forces.com. And typically what we do is we set up a demo with someone. We do some research on the school prior to know exactly how the software can help them. If they're doing outside maintenance, we make a point to talk about that. And so we do kind of as customized demos as we possibly can. And if folks are interested, we could actually set up a sandbox environment for them. And so it's like a test environment to see, like, what does this look like? And we'll put your planes in there. We could put some students in there if you like. And it's basically like a dry run, and if they like what they see from there, we basically start the onboarding process, and we send them, there's an onboarding questionnaire. They fill out all the details. The most time-consuming process in all of it is the curriculum, because we do all of that for you guys. So we're not going to ask you to pull your best and brightest CFIs off the line for a week to put the instrument and commercial and CFI syllabus in. So for every school that we do, regardless if it's a syllabus where another one of our flight schools is using in the software, we build yours from the ground up. And so that's the most time-consuming process, but we do it for you. We've had schools go live in less than 10 days from the time we met them. Now that was a customer that was ready to rock, got all the documents that they needed, because there is the underwriting with Gravity that they have to do as well to get the payment processing integrated. But we do, by and large, I would say 95% of the work. What we ask for flight schools and flight clubs is to check and verify as we go. So when we put the syllabus in, we'll put all the syllabus in up to stage 1. We'll have a call with them to be like, hey, this is what it looks like in the system. Here's the grading scale. Here's the score that's considered passable. Does everything look good to go? We get the sign off there, then we finish the rest. But everything's kind of pulled from that questionnaire that they do, and we get it all. Basically, our goal in the software is the day they go live, the student that was on instrument lesson 6 on Friday is on instrument lesson 7 on Monday. It's a clean process for them. It's a clean process for them, and they don't have to feel like it's. We hope that it's like, oh wow, this is really, really cool. But it's as far as we just have to get the students, and then we get the aircraft in there for them. The day we go live, we just have an early call with the maintenance team. give me the tack and hobs because they probably flew over the weekend. So I need the latest and greatest tack and hobs, and it's off and running. Our goal is to hand you guys the keys with it up and running. One thing I will say is, it is a as far as putting like students in and stuff, we do all that for you as well. We have like a mass kind of uploading system. So if you have any apprehension about that, we've migrated a lot of schools over, because the big concern obviously is they have the records from the previous software. So we have a system, we can get those records stored in their current profile. So when the FA, if you need to talk to the FAA comes or anything like that, they have all the records from their training prior and with us.
Cool.
I saw something pop up, but I couldn't read it. Sorry.
So we had one of the audience members on the podcast ask a question. So I guess we got to go back to pricing really quick. So we talked about the pricing model. I think you said charge per user. You said 19 or so per CFI. I think 29, 39 for the admin and maintenance. This one is asking, is there another like overall monthly cost or annual cost on top of the user fees and all that stuff?
No, it's broken down by the users that are using the software. So, and there is an admin user type, which I went past. So there's the CFI, maintenance person, admins, and chiefs. The real big difference between chiefs and admins in the system is chiefs can graduate students, admins can't. We can set it up to where they could turn that permission on, but by and large, that's a big difference. But you can have an admin run the school essentially, because a lot of them actually do. They just don't have like the chief designation. But yeah, so no, there's no like secret feeds or anything. It's the number of users that are using the software, and so, but yeah, again, if you have a great summer enrollment and you go up by 50 students, that doesn't come with a bill to us. We hope that's 50 students that like the software that eventually become CFIs and, go to other flight schools and tell them about Four Forces. So that's the ultimate goal for us.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's actually really cost effective for flight schools out there. I'm not trying to put any names out there. I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible without bashing anybody. So I think some flight school software systems, they cost per plane, let's say $80 to let's say $200 a month plane. I think with and let's say you have like for a flight school, let's say at $1 million, you're really roughly around 6-7 planes. It's about $1,000 or $2,000 a month that people can be paying for this type of software. And then there's some cheaper solutions out there. But then I think with you guys with the user model, I think typically what I'm seeing let's keep with the $1 million flight school out there. So a $1 million flight school typically has around I don't know, say like around 10 instructors, maybe 10 to 15.
Yeah, sure.
Does that sound right? So the cost goes from about $2,000 to about what, $300. So
it's and
give or take.
Yeah.
I'm just doing back of the napkin math here. I mean, I don't know.
And every school is a little different, right? Because like some schools, they have 4, let's say 6 maintenance personnel, but only 2 of them are actually going to need Four Forces logins. I'm only charging for the people that are actually going to be using it and logging into it. You know what I mean? Like, and we have a system. If you have a CFI that flies once a month, because they're flying for the airlines, we even have a discount for those folks. Like they're kind of they're not full-time CFIs, so we can acknowledge them. And you don't have to pay the same amount. We try to be as fair as possible, because having worked in flight training, it's like the margins are thin, and so what we try to provide flight schools is twofold: is getting their margins back, because as best we possibly can, because with Four Forces and Gravity, they're saving the money on the software itself, they're saving on processing, they're saving time, and so that's huge. It's because it's all financial and it's bottom line. It's at the end of the day, they can see how much they're saving. But one of the other main focuses is, and I harken it back to a story when I was at the last flight school I was at, that we were in a management meeting and we were talking about everything that had nothing to do with flight training necessarily. It's like TSA and, all this stuff that was just like, this is, housing and all these headaches. And our chief pilot at the time, I'll never forget it, kind of leaned back and raised, he's like, we're just trying to teach people to fly. And that really stuck with me, because it's like, at the end of the day, that's why the flight school was started. And so what we're trying to do is give people their time back to go actually teach people to fly, and not chase reports and chase things and go, really simplify processes. So what used to take 2 hours takes 5 minutes, and they can now have their door open and rather than have it closed. And because one of the questions we like to ask our chief pilots, and it's wild when we talk to them on the, like, just out of curiosity, like, how many hours did you fly this month? And it's, they're like, 2.5, it's sometimes it's like ridiculous. Yeah. Like it's crazy low, because they're so busy with the administrative component of it. And so we're trying to, and the tracking of the students and making all of that easy. And so we try to simplify all of that with good reporting and filtering and searching for students easier and just trying to get an idea what's going on with your flight school without it costing you half an afternoon just to get started,
Cool. I know we are coming up towards the end of this recording here. You did mention we'll do a couple discussion on profits, and because I think it's a big hot topic. I don't know. Maybe I may be on the wrong, might be reading the market wrong, but I feel that a lot of flight schools struggle with profitability, margins, profit, and all this stuff. Just kind of curiosity with the flight schools that I have an idea of the people that I work with, where they're at, and also other people, like the prospects, where they're at. For you guys, what's the typical margin that you guys are seeing, and what are some tips? This is kind of outside of both of our realm. I do marketing and you do software. But what are some tips that flight schools can take to really help increase their margins, reduce costs, and also provide good quality, safe service?
I think one thing that jumps out to me is, whether we like it or not, the cost of running these aircraft has gotten much more expensive in a very short period of time, both for parts going up and then the people who are working on it, their price per hour went up across the nation. And so, you have those two components at the same time, but it's tough to, basically what I'm trying to say is, like, the costs are going up and it's hard for flight schools to keep up with what they're charging per hour, because sometimes they don't even necessarily know, like, how much is that plane costing me? That one in particular. I can see my total cost. So we set something up in the system to know exactly how much each aircraft is costing you. How many flight hours have you flown in it? How many that were rev versus non-rev, and whether costs associated with it, insurance, hangar space, any work orders associated to it. So it's really that chase for flight schools to get the sweet spot on pricing. And I can tell you, pricing is, you think it sounds easy, but it's way more complicated than you can imagine. But when you have a constantly, changing cost of doing business, it's difficult because you don't want to go to your customers every 3 months and be like, oh, it went up again $2. So it's like, it's trying to balance. It's a very, balancing, difficult balance, because, like, you also want to be competitive in the marketplace, because I'm sure every single person on this call has a flight school in their area that is willing to do it at 60% that they're doing it at, which is just, like, financially completely impossible, but it's still appealing to that student who wants to save money, right? So it's like, there's always going to be the case. There's always going to be people flying your school with outrageous prices and stuff like that. But it's kind of showing, to me, it's showing, like, the value that the school is demonstrating, and the schools that I find do it the best, that are able to kind of navigate that delicate space of, like, hey, we have to raise the rates, are the ones that are the most committed to their students. Like, they're just, like, there's a symmetry there that, like, and they're open and honest about it, and they're saying, like, this is why, we wanted to hire additional maintenance folks so the aircraft can be up, more for you. So that comes with, so it's like having an open and honest conversation, but it's not all about dollars and cents. Like, the schools that are passionate about their students, where the whole dispatch area is nervous the day a student has a check ride, but that nervous energy that they have because they care, right? And it's like, it's palpable at some of the schools, and those are the ones that I've seen that they've had to, some of them have raised their rates, but I also see they have more students than they've ever had. So it's like, because they're doing it the right way. And so my biggest suggestion to any flight school is to just take care of the people and the students, right? Obsess about the student experience, because there's going to be a lousy day in their training, whether you like it or not. There's going to be a big flight that they have that the aircraft's not going to be flyable, and they're going to be upset about it. But it's kind of, you got to get that goodwill built up beforehand to know, like, hey, this is a bump in the road, but we got you, and so that kind of attitude are the schools that I think will kind of, even with the rising costs, can stem the tide and continue to thrive.
it's crazy to think that schools that have raised their price are getting more students, and the schools that are lowering their prices get a big bump at first because they're lower, but then they go bankrupt.
Right.
So I'd rather you stay in business, and train more pilots. I don't think lowering your prices is the best way to go. We do only have about 3 minutes left in the call, 4 minutes left in the call. So I want to do some final call to actions for you. So if anyone wants to get in contact with Brett, how do we do this? What's your your website? I guess we can put your website.
we have a website, fly4forces.com. Feel free to check it out there. There is ability to book me for a demo at any point or someone on our team. So our calendars are open. Feel free to reach out, and like I mentioned earlier, like we appreciate having as many people on the demo as possible. We want the biggest skeptic on the call, because I'm going to have to win them over eventually, and so I'd rather do it from the start, right? Because it's all about kind of making them feel that they're going to get wins out of this. We're trying to improve the whole ecosystem. To not where like one department's getting something that they like and everyone else has gotten to get the short end of the stick. We're trying to really do it kind of, for the whole organization. And so we like to get them on, as soon as we possibly can. But yeah, so you can book me a demo there. We do, we're on LinkedIn as well. And so we do kind of some random webinars here and there when we've got some neat features coming along. But so if you're interested in checking in with me, and I'm happy to do a demo whenever you guys see fit. And then, if you like what you see, we're happy to get anyone on this call or anyone, that use it later, the ability to get their own sandbox, check it out. Seeing is believing, and, giving them some time to check it out, in person.
Great. It was awesome having you here. So again, just to wrap up here, this is the Right Rudder Marketing Podcast. Right Rudder Marketing is a marketing agency. So we do flight schools. We work with flight schools all across the country and even the globe. We have some international clients now, and we work with flight schools to really help drive sales, to really help drive enrollments, get more students in the door. We do marketing services, website design, SEO, pay-per-click ads, Google ads, Facebook ads, the whole 9 yards. We really come with what's called the flight school marketing system. It's basically looking at every single thing we can do online to really drive enrollments, drive more people to your website, drive more people to your brand. If you're interested, make sure you contact us, info@rightruddermarketing.com. And also, if you're listening to this and you're a flight school or maybe another vendor or business owner that works with the aviation market, aviation industry, and you want to hop onto this podcast, make sure you give us a call at 1-314-804-1200. So again, this is Tim with Right Rudder Marketing signing off, and we really appreciate you hopping in here, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks when we have our next podcast. So stick around. See you around.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. See ya.
See ya.